What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of No Bros All Honest Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Phoebus, coming back at you again here today. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk a little bit of the UFC, Orlando. We're going to talk the entire main card. And we're going to get into some onefc fights from over the weekend. Then we're also going to talk a little Tyson Fury fight, and then we're going to wrap it up with a little UFC 282 preview. That's what's on the cards today. So let's jump right into it. We got Kevin Holland versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson in the main event of the UFC Orlando card that went down Saturday night. And Stephen Thompson, Wonderboy, gets it down in round 4 with a corner stoppage before round 5. Kevin Holland had broken his hand. And coming in, I had picked Stephen Wonderboy Thompson to win in round 4 by TKO or KO. We got a little lucky with the corner stoppage, but in either way, we picked the winner. Wonderboy, he's an amazing striker. He uses the very individual style. It's a bladed stance, more suited for point fighting and kickboxing, but he's found a way to adapt that into MMA, and he's made quite a career out of it. And Kevin Holland, we know he's a good striker, very, very dynamic. I would argue a better grappler than Wonderboy. But overall, his wrestling, I would say, is not that strong in comparison to the rest of the division. And then Kevin Holland, it seems that he has an ego, that he likes to beat opponents at their own game sometimes. And it hasn't worked out before. We've seen him try and out-grapple people, and he was just beat by better grapplers. And in this one, it seemed like he tried to outstrike a better striker than him, and it did not work for him. As well as I think he planned on it too. Round 1 started, and the first thing I noticed is that it was a southpaw versus orthodox affair. And that is relevant because when it is southpaw versus orthodox, the front foot you want to have on the outside of your opponent. And when you have your front foot outside of your opponent's front foot, you are able to be in line to land shots cleaner, and you are more balanced and ready to land your strikes cleaner. So right off the bat, I noticed that, and Wonderboy was timing the entry of Holland, and he was, as soon as Holland would close the distance, Thompson was throwing a left hand straight down the pipe, and that was landing consistently. Even in round 1, the straight lefts from Thompson. Holland had hurt Thompson with a right hand, and there was great follow-up shots by Kevin Holland. Wonderboy was pretty dazed. He was getting hit with elbows. But Wonderboy was able to find some space, use his kicks, and keep the distance. The kicks from Wonderboy weren't full arsenal shown in round 1, but you could start to see that his kicks were definitely going to be a part of the fight, which they are in every fight, as he uses them to set up everything. Good round 1 for Holland, as I thought he landed the cleaner, harder shots, but Wonderboy did great work as well. I just gave the round to Holland. Round 2, the kicks of Wonderboy started to come alive. The head kick is it's amazing how fast that thing is. There's no telegraph on it, no fat. But he was using that front leg kick to set up the rest of his offense. But also he was landing good counters on Holland's entry again. Wonderboy was setting up blitzes. He would use a jab, and then he would do a 3-4 punch combo. Sometimes he would set it up with a leg kick and then a 3-4 punch combo. But with about 1:45 left in round 2, Holland gets a takedown, and he immediately lets Wonderboy up. And we'll talk more about just the overall strategy of Holland after. But he lets him back up, and Kevin Holland's chin is then put on display because Wonderboy starts landing left hands just clean, straight down the pipe. Holland's head not moving off the line, and he's just getting hit clean because Wonderboy was winning that front foot battle. Round 2 definitely went to Wonderboy. Round 3 starts, Wonderboy back at it with the kicks. This time, now he's starting to go upstairs with them, aiming for the head with roundhouse kicks. Holland gets Wonderboy down again with a minute and a half left in the round, and then lets him right back up. Combos from both men were on point, both striking with the hands and feet, but Thompson definitely wins round 3. Holland's kind of getting touched up. He seemed to have a hard time with the speed of Wonderboy. We'll get into more about Wonderboy completely at the end. But round 4 starts, and Holland isn't throwing the right hand as much. He's engaging in the clinch at a much higher frequency. And Wonderboy is throwing hard body kicks at this point. He lands about 2 or 3 in the row, and then you immediately start to see Holland drop his liver side arm down to cover the liver because he's been hit there 1 or 2 times cleanly. A spinning heel kick by Thompson wobbles Holland. Holland's able to survive. He gets back up. Holland is just standing in front of Wonderboy. He's able to survive the round. He was getting hit with everything. I mean, punches, kicks to the body, kicks to the head. Round ends. Holland goes back to his corner. The corner waves it off. And Stephen Wonderboy Thompson wins the fight via TKO round 4 corner stoppage. My main takeaways from this: the heart and chin of Kevin Holland can never be questioned anymore. Some of those shots were devastating. Kicks to the body, kicks to the head, and he just ate them. But there were bad fight decisions by Kevin Holland in this fight. When he got the takedowns, he should have never let Wonderboy up, or at least tried to hold him down and land some ground and pound, make effective use of it. There was some sort of gentleman's agreement, according to Wonderboy in his post-fight press conference, saying that if one of them got a takedown, they would immediately let him back up, which is not a smart thing to do, especially if you are the better grappler, as I think most people would argue. So just not a very smart move on Holland's part. Also, the ego side of it, like I said at the beginning, he was trying to outstrike Wonderboy, who is a better striker. Like, if you know that you're getting touched up like that and you're able to then get a takedown, like, you should want to utilize that to land some effective striking and good ground and pound on your opponent. So overall, though, I would say Holland didn't do bad. It was just like he just didn't make smart decisions. And it's like he didn't stay focused on the objective of winning the fight. He may need some new people around him that just know how to keep him focused on winning the fight, which is the most important thing, and not putting on a good show for your fans. Sure, you want to put on a good show for the fans, but it's important to win the fight. Because if you don't win the fight, you wasted your time during all that training camp to make half of the amount of money that you probably could have. Because I think there was honestly a point early in the fight where he could have maybe gotten Steven out of there. And he didn't, but he needed to utilize those takedowns to his advantage more and not just let Wonderboy back up. And as far as Wonderboy, I mean, for 39, he looks as fast as ever. The kicks were a thing of beauty. The hook kick, the spinning hook kick, it's just incredible that he can still do that this late into his career. The full arsenal was definitely on display, and it was just an extremely impressive performance by Wonderboy, given his age. And, I was thoroughly impressed with Wonderboy. But what's next for both of these guys? For Holland, I think it's some time off. And like I said, maybe finding some new coaches around him, finding some new training partners around him, just so that way he can get focused. And he'll bounce back. He'll be ready to go first quarter of 2023, maybe early second quarter. But I think he just needs to take a little time off and focus on himself. Maybe not even the fighting aspect, because he has all the skill and talent in the world. I think it's just the mental side that he needs to really work on. Not that he's, dumb or anything like that. I just think that he needs to work on the focus side of the fight game. And I think he could really, really flourish and prosper from that. Wonderboy, what's next for him? I'm not sure. Honestly, because he's not a great grappler, and I don't think anybody would try, and I don't even think he would argue that he is a good grappler. But, looking at the rankings, I don't know if there's anybody really left that he hasn't fought that is a good matchup for him. I mean, I'm not sure I want to see him against Shavkat Rakhmonov. I mean, would you? I don't want to see him against Sean Brady. These are just not good matchups for him. There's just a lot of bad matchups in the welterweight division because of how many good grapplers there are for him. So we'll see what the UFC wants to do with him. If they want to, put him against one of these up-and-coming lions, more power to him if he takes the fight. I just don't know if they're great matchups, but, we'll see what the UFC does. I know Wonderboy wants to get at least one more fight in there. I think he said he's, not ready to retire yet, so we'll see. We'll see what he does, but great fight overall. Let's jump in the next fight. We had Bryan Barberena taking on Rafael Dos Anjos in the co-main event. And Rafael Dos Anjos, a.k.a. RDA, gets it done with the round 2 submission. Coming into this fight, I picked Barberena. I thought the youth, the speed, and size would play a big factor. I didn't know if RDA at 38, with all the fights that he's had, the big fights, all the mileage on his career, that he would be able to handle the pressure and like dog attitude of Barberena. But man, was I wrong. Round 1 started and RDA just kept calm under pressure. Very veteran performance by RDA in this fight. He was able to get a takedown off the high body lock in the clinch, and on top, RDA was immediately a hammer. He was smothering Barberena, not letting Barberena go anywhere. He was able to lock, threatening with an arm triangle, and if the cage wasn't in the way, he would have definitely gotten a finish in this in round 1. But he lets the chokes go, throws more punches to the head, trying to get Barberena to move away from the cage. He's holding that top control so tight. Barberena's not really even able to get back up to his base, and he rides out the round 1 in dominant fashion. Clear 10-9 round for RDA. Round 2 started, and Barberena, he tried to force the brawl more in round 2. I will give that to him. He's throwing big strikes straight off the beginning with opening bell, but RDA was able to find space. He shot a double, and he got the takedown. Barberena was able to use the fence to get back up to his feet, but RDA was just relentless at controlling this position. A left outside trip put Barberena back down to the mat, and RDA was immediately into side control. Barberena, he was able to work his way back into getting RDA into his full guard, but RDA was constantly moving on the top, never accepting the position, able to get to the back of Barberena, sink in the rear naked choke, and he gets the tap. And it goes down as a submission in round 2. And what do we have to say about this fight? Man, the thing to talk about in this fight is Rafael dos Anjos, a.k.a. RDA. RDA is a man, a myth, and a legend. With this fight, he overtook Frankie Edgar for most octagon time in UFC with over 8 hours, becoming also the first man to have over 8 hours of fight time in the octagon. It's just incredible, man. I mean, when we look at RDA's resume, and regardless of the outcome, listen to the names of people that he has fought in his career. And this isn't even all of them. I just cherry-picked a few of these. I skipped a few of the fights, but let's just go down to this list that I made. Rafael Fiziev, Renato Moicano, Paul Felder, Michael Chiesa, Leon Edwards, Kevin Lee, Kamaru Usman, Colby Covington, Robbie Lawler, Neil Magny, Tony Ferguson, Eddie Alvarez, Donald Cerrone, Anthony Pettis, Nate Diaz, Benson Henderson, Habib Nurmagomedov, Clay Guida, Gleason Tebow. Like I said, I skipped a few names because I went down his entire fight resume, but that's 8 former or current champions, including an interim champion in there. I mean, RDA is a first ballot Hall of Famer, and he deserves all of the respect that you can possibly give him. After the fight, he called out Conor McGregor. I do not think Conor McGregor wants to have that fight, given him all the grappling that RDA just showed in the fight. But I love the call out. I doubt the UFC will make it happen, but one can hope. They were supposed to fight back in the day for the original double champ belt. There was an injury, and RDA loses the belt to Eddie Alvarez, and Conor McGregor goes on and puts out one of the most impressive performances ever and becomes a double champ. So we never got to see RDA versus Conor McGregor, but maybe now is the time. I doubt it, but love the call out. RDA just putting on a veteran performance. It was impressive to see, given all the time that he's had. But man, I gotta tell you, man, he's one of those guys that you've got to put some respect on his name. And as far as Bryan Barberena, he was just outmatched and outclassed in this fight. Not a good night at the office for Bryan Barberena. I know he'll be back. He didn't take too much punishment in this fight overall, so shouldn't be too long of a little layoff. But I mean, I'm sure he'll be back first quarter of 2023. Let's jump to the next fight. We had Matheus Nicolau taking on Matt Schnell, and Nicolau gets the round 2 win via KO. Coming in this fight, I picked Matt Schnell. Total emotional fight based off his last performance versus Sumadarji, which was just one of the most amazing comeback victories of the year. And round 1 started, and Nicolau, he was on his bike, and he was moving around the octagon, circling, moving laterally, feinting in and out every now and then. But, he was mainly using the full circle of the octagon. And Schnell, he was just following, and he wasn't cutting off the cage. Where, if you're not moving laterally with your opponent, you're falling behind them, they're able to time you as soon as you step in, and that's what happened. Schnell, he was following, not cutting the cage, and he got dropped 3 minutes into the first round off of a feint with Nicolau feinted with the right hand and then threw an overhand left that Nicolau didn't even see coming. Good ground and pound by Nicolau as soon as he knocked him down, but he let Schnell back up, which I think is a smart play. When you see your opponent's wounded and you can't put him away immediately on the ground, let him back up because they're still probably on wobbly legs. Their defense is probably still compromised, and you're going to be able to land hard, clean shots just based off the fact of the mental space of your opponent at that time. So in any way, Schnell gets back up, and he's already being touched up. He's hurt. He wants to keep getting. Nicolau wants to keep touching him, and Schnell is back to trying to pressure Nicolau. Good combos, but he's following again, and he's getting hit clean by Nicolau. He's timing the steps of Schnell since he's not cutting off the cage, like I've been saying, and he's winning the footwork battle in round one. Round one, clear 10-8 for Nicolau. Round two starts, and it's more the same strategy by Nicolau. Side-to-side movement, timing off the entering of Schnell, and he drops Schnell again 40 seconds into the round off a straight left as Schnell tried to close the distance. Just good timing, just great timing on this shot. Schnell gets back up after a few seconds spent on top in the guard. Nicolau rocks Schnell again with a 1-2 right-left hook combo, and the right hook then another right hook behind the ear of Schnell as he was following Nicolau's movement, drops Schnell for the third time. Ground and pound follow-up by Nicolau, and Keith Peterson has forced to step in and stop the fight. Goes down as a round 2 KO by Nicolau. Great finish by Nicolau. His timing and speed were better than Schnell tonight. He's clearly got power in both hands, and I think his movement was frustrating Schnell. Schnell was clearly having a problem with this movement. He was following, like I mentioned the entire time. You need to be cutting off your opponent's exits on the cage. And as soon as it seemed like he did cut him off, or at least have him semi-cornered, he would blitz in, but Nicolau was ready for this and timed it immediately, and boom, dropped him. Dropped him 3 times in this fight, and just a rough night at the office for Schnell, sorry. So what do we got going from here? Nicolau, he needs to fight a top 5 guy next. I think anybody in the top 5 would be a good fight for him, but since Brandon Royval at number 4 ranked, or Alex Pantoja number 2, both these guys need to fight, and I think either one would be an awesome fight for Nicolau. And as far as Matt Schnell, I think he needs to take some time off, bounce back. He's taken a lot of damage in these past 2 fights. I would like to see maybe a fight with Tim Elliott since at number 10, be a good bounce back opponent, another striker. Not a guy that's in that top 5 kind of area of the division that's a real hammer. But, time off, bounce back. We'll see him again next year. Let's jump to the next fight. Tuivasa took on Sergei Palovich, and it goes down as a round 1 KO by Sergei Palovich, inside a minute actually. And what can we say? He is a hammer, Sergei Palovich. Since joining the UFC, Palovich has had 6 fights. He's 5-1 in all those. And all 5 of those wins are in a row, and they've all been first-round knockouts. He throws straight punches the majority of the time, but he's also got a little loop in a few of them once he really gets kind of just brawling on you and the wave is coming. But he's accurate. His accuracy mixed with that power is just for a deadly combination. And, he sat tied down with a jab tonight. And then he swarmed and finished the fight. It was only a minute into the fight. Not much to really talk about the fight. But Sergei is a hammer. He's got power in both hands. He's very accurate. He's light, nimble on his feet. He's also got a chin too. He got hit a few times by Ty's shots, and he didn't even flinch to him. He just kind of ate them. And, it was just a rough night at Ty. He may have come back a little too early, given that rough KO that he took to Cyril Gane. So I think he bounced back a little bit too early. After the fight, he posted on his social media that he's going to take some time off, which I think is a very, very smart thing to do. He needs to get the brain right, let it rest, let it heal. He's taking a lot of damage. These heavyweights, a lot of them live by the sword and die by the sword. So yeah, take some time off and we'll see him back. I'm ready to see another Shuey next year. Hopefully, late second quarter, early third quarter of next year, we'll be seeing Tai Tuivasa do a Shuey again. And yeah, Sergei, what's next for him? Clearly, he's a top 5 guy. A fight with Stipe Miocic, the former champ, sounds awesome. A fight with Cyril Gane, the former interim champ, sounds awesome. I think he's a clear title contender at this point. 1 win, 2 wins away at most from really fighting for the title. I think that his power, his accuracy, his movement, he's going to be a problem. He's a problem in this heavyweight division. And there's somebody else similar to him that fights outside of this promotion. We'll talk about him later. But, this guy's a hammer. And keep an eye out for him. Next fight we're going to talk about, we had Jack Hermansson taking on Roman Dolidze. Dolidze gets it done with a round 2 KO. I picked Dolidze before the fight. I just thought his power and his ability to maintain balance, and he has good takedown defense. These would be the keys for him beating Hermansson. And I was pretty close on that prediction. Round 1 starts, and immediately we see the difference in styles. Hermansson, he's very squirrely, very, very jerky, very unorthodox in the pattern in which he throws his techniques. And Dolidze, he's very stoic and patient. He's pressuring but not following. He's cutting off the cage, And there's a good takedown by Jack in the opening couple minutes of the round, in the open middle of the mat. Dolidze hits this beautiful sweep off the bottom by threatening an armbar and was able to pass on top. Hermansson initiates a clinch after they get back up to their feet and they break. It was a good round 1 for Hermansson. Dolidze, not a bad round, but he just needed to be more active. I'd give round 1 to Hermansson. But yeah, Dolidze just be more active going into round 2, and that's exactly what he did. He started off round 2 with good body shots and combos. It's hard to land clean on Hermansson, though, as we saw with just based off his movement. But Hermansson was able to get a takedown. Dolidze threatens that same sweep again, and Jack feels it coming. He reacts, but Dolidze switches it to a triangle choke. He readjusts and then locks in this nasty calf slicer. It forces Jack to belly down, and Dolidze just lands some vicious ground and pound and closes out the show. It's rare to see a calf slicer at this level, but it's just as effective as we ever have known it to be. If you don't know what a calf slicer is, take your leg, do like a calf, take your calf and close it this way back towards put your heel to your butt, but then have your friend put their leg there in between and then close it and pull it as tight as you can. And I'm telling you, you will feel a calf slicer. It is not a fun position to be in. It's not sometimes it can be a total submission, but if you're not going to tap to that, it's going to be a problem and you got to get out of it. And it was cool to see one at this level. Good fight by both guys. Hermansson, he looked good. His style, normal, squirrely, bouncing in and out. Takedown threats is, looked good until it didn't for him. He's clearly a good fighter. He's been in the top 10 for quite some time now. And, he's just never been able to make that real push into the top 5 of the division. But he's not a bad fighter. But what's next for these guys? Dolidze, he was not ranked. I think they debuted him today at number 11, if I saw that correctly. But maybe we'll see him in that 15, 13 guy next. A guy trying to bounce up and fight him. Yeah, we'll see what he gets next. One of those 13 and 15 guys I think would be good for him. Hermansson, he's number 6 before the fight in the matchup. Maybe a fight with Imanov would be a good fight. Tough opponent, but we need to keep this division moving in. I think it'd be a good test for Hermansson. Is he a top 10 guy still, or is Imanov, who is ranked below Hermansson, is he better than we think he is? So I think Hermansson, we'll see. We'll see him come back. Next fight on the card, we're going to talk about Eryk Anders took on Kyle Daukaus. And Eryk Anders gets the round 2 KO as well. It's funny because coming into this fight, I was sure about Anders winning this fight. I felt good on it. Felt like he had turned a page. Felt like he had leveled up. And, on the verdict app, I put in round 2 KO. But then last minute, I don't know. I just had a change of heart. I just thought, the youth, the speed, the grappling, I think the overall arsenal of weapons was better for Daukaus, and I changed it to round 2 KO for Kyle Daukaus, and boy was I wrong. Your boy, Eryk Anders, looked fantastic. The body looked cut, he looked lean, he looked in better shape than he had ever looked. And he didn't start slow, which is how we normally see Eryk Anders. Round 1, and Eryk is straight pressuring into Kyle. Kyle's returning with great leg kicks. Kyle has great Muay Thai. He has great striking, honestly. He just got hit clean a few times. His defense necessarily isn't there at the level that his offense is, which isn't a bad thing, and it gives him something clear to work on. But, Eryk was just pressuring forward, and he landed clean a few times on your opponent. And when you do that at that level, these guys, they have power. And when you have power like that, you're able to really hurt your opponent. And, there was a really bad clash of heads with about 20 seconds left in round 1. Daukaus said that he was good after maybe about 30 seconds, but I don't think that was a smart play because as soon as he said let's go, he was dropped again almost immediately, but he was able to survive the round. Good round 1 for both guys, but, I had to give the round to Anders. I just thought that, he had hurt his opponent more. And round 2 starts, and Anders is back to putting pressure on Daukaus because he knows he's hurt. Daukaus worked for a takedown, 30 seconds of the round. There was great takedown defense by Anders with a good sprawl. Daukaus froze on a reshot on a single leg, and, Anders threw 5-6 hammer fists. Daukaus turned to his back into the guard position. Anders started moving his legs to the side. He landed good ground and pound. Kyle stands back up, and in short order, a short left drops Daukaus. Anders does more ground and pound and closes out the show with almost 3 minutes left in round 2 and gets the TKO/KO victory. The striking looked good by both guys. Like I said, the Muay Thai of Daukaus is actually really, really good. He just got caught a few times not moving his head off the center line. Anders' striking looked great. It looked way improved. The only critique I would give to Eryk Anders in this fight, there was a few times where he had Daukaus hurt, and Daukaus would go to that kind of back. He would lay on his back and just keep his feet in the air. Not really in Eryk Anders, not on the ground, following him to the guard, but he was standing over top of him and just kicking him in the legs. And when you have your opponent hurt, I think you should either engage with them on the ground in some ground and pound, or immediately stand them back up. Kicking them in the butt, in the thighs is doing nothing but giving your opponent to take fresh breaths of air. And so I think that this was a little bit of an error, but that's my only critique for Eryk Anders. Otherwise, I think he looked great. What's next for Eryk Anders? I'd love to see a top 15 guy. I think Brad Tavares would be a great win for him. They're both coming off KO victories. They're both kind of brawly. They both have got good power, good striking. So I think that'd be a great fight for Eryk Anders. As far as Kyle Daukaus, get back to the gym, keep training, and we'll see him back. Work on that defense. Just work on getting your head off the center line. The striking is there. Just maybe a little defensive tweaks, and we'll still see where he goes from there. All right, next thing we're going to get into, we watched the ONEFC fights from over the weekend. They had 2 fight cards, one on Friday night and then one early Saturday morning here in America, as they were both in Singapore. First one we're going to talk about took place on Prime 5, which was Friday night. It took place, Friday evening. And the fight we're going to talk about off that one is going to be the Reiner versus Anatoly Malykin. And this was the backstory. Reiner RDR, he was the double champ at middleweight and light heavyweight. Malykin was the interim heavyweight champ, moving down to try and become the light heavyweight champ, and then move back up, obviously, to unify the heavyweight belt. But this fight was one-way traffic. Malykin gets it done via KO in round 1, and there was never a moment in this fight where Reiner had anything at all. Malykin, very, very similar style to Sergei Palovich, who we talked about earlier. Very accurate, very mobile on his feet, amazing power. It was every punch that Reiner even kind of landed on Malykin, it just looked like a pebble being thrown in an asteroid. Whereas when Malykin landed on Reiner de Ritter, you could see in the facial expression, he was just like, oh, fuck. You know, just, he did not want to get hit by those punches. And, you know, Reiner de Ritter, he's a good grappler, good striker, but, you know, he just had nothing from Malykin. Malykin just steamrolled him to a victory. Fun fight to watch for the short time it lasted, in the sense of if you just want to see devastating power in one-way traffic. Yeah, we'll see Malykin again. I'm sure he's going to go up there and unify the title now, or at least attempt to. So I'd love to see his next fight. We'll talk about him when he bounces back. RDR, take some time off, man. No, just a bad night at the office. We'll see him again. You know, he's still your middleweight champ, so we'll see where he goes from there. The other fight I want to talk about was on the Saturday morning card, and this was Panpayak Jitmunan versus Superlek. And this was set up to be for the flyweight Muay Thai Grand Prix belt, but both had issues with weight and hydration, so the Grand Prix belt was stripped and not on the line. Just kind of sad because it's another event where one had an issue with either the weight or the hydration, and it spoils either, you know, the belt being given to somebody, or just, you know, the overall drama or importance or meaningfulness of fights. You know, when these guys miss weight or have hydration failures, and, you know, the overall magnitude of the fight is not allowed to play out to the full effect. But anyway, before the fight, just to lay some context, both these guys are 26 years old. Superlek, he had 163 fights coming into this with a record of 130, 29, and 4 with 14 KOs. He was the number 2 ranked flyweight kickboxer in the world, and number 3 ranked flyweight Muay Thai fighter coming into the fight. Panpayak, of course, 292 fights, 248 wins, 41 losses, and 3 draws with 35 KOs. And he was the number 2 ranked flyweight Muay Thai fighter in the world. So these guys, they were, you know, in the finals for this bracket. They fought each other 7 times before, with Panpayak leading this with a record of 4-2-1, 4 wins against Superlek, 2 losses and 1 draw. This was their 8th fight between each other, which is unheard of, in my opinion. You don't hear about this in modern MMA, in the UFC. You know, these Muay Thai fighters, they fight so often. This isn't unheard of in Muay Thai, but for the most, I would say, general casual fan, this is unheard of. But, you know, this felt like an 8th fight between them. Superlek, he earns the decision. Superlek, he used what he's known for, the kicks. His leg kicks were nasty. His body kicks were awesome. And Panpayak, he had great hands, great leg kicks. But overall, the fight just felt boring for me, for the fighters. Neither of them really was put in imminent danger. It wasn't dominated by either one of them. And they read each other's hands very well. The leg kicks that were even thrown were checked by each other. And, you know, after 7 fights with each other, you know, it's just, and all the experience that these guys have had, you know, over 400 fights between the two, you know, they just know what to do. They just read each other so well, and it just didn't lead. I just feel like nobody really forced the action or went outside of their character or did something dynamic to really threaten the opponent. It felt like just a little bit of a safe fight, but it wasn't a bad fight. It just felt like this was their 8th fight together, and they knew what each other brought to the table, and they respected each other, both inside the ring, you know, and outside of the ring, inside of fighting and as just people. And I think that just also played a factor in it. 8th fight together, that's just insane to me. But anyway, Superlek gets the decision. I agreed with it. I thought he just was a little bit better, landed a little bit cleaner. And this fight sets up Superlek versus Rodtang. for the flyweight Muay Thai World Championship. And if I had to bet, this is going to be on the May card that they just announced as the first American stateside ONEFC fight card. Yeah, I would highly imagine that Rodtang versus Superlek is going to be on that card. Never fought each other. There's been controversy. One of them, have they been ducking each other? Have they not? Well, we're definitely going to get to see it now in Muay Thai. Superlek, he may have the style to beat Rodtang with just such a wide arsenal of kicks. Rodtang forward pressure, just a marauder, fan favorite type of guy. It should be an amazing fight either way. I cannot wait to see it. Hopefully we just get to see that one here in America. That fight alone is main event card worthy. That should be a banger. But yeah, great fights by one. There was more fights on both cards that were really good. I just want to talk about the two that I think are the most notable. And honestly, some of the fighters I just really, really like to watch, especially those Muay Thai guys, Panpayak and Superlek. But let's jump into Tyson Fury's fight. He defeated Derek Chisora via TKO in round 10. What do we need to say about this fight? This fight didn't need to happen, but it's what we got. This fight could have been finished early by Fury in the third round, in my opinion. Fury has used that jab. And when Chisora closed the distance, Fury threw uppercuts, which hurt Chisora on multiple occasions. Dominant win by Tyson Fury. It could have, like I said, it could have been over way earlier. But I think that Tyson Fury was kind of just letting Chisora put on a show for the fans, and eventually Tyson Fury gets it done in the TKO round 10. After the fight, Usyk comes in the ring and they do a face-off. So hopefully they're setting this fight up and it's going to be the next fight. Come on, boxing. Please don't fuck this one up. We've got to see Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk. Make it for the undisputed, all the belts, all four on the line. We have to see it. Make it happen next, boxing. Please don't mess this up. Okay. Last thing we're going to talk about is UFC 282. That goes down this Saturday, December 10th. And in your main event, you have Jan Blachowicz taking on Magomed Ankalaev for the light heavyweight belt. This matchup came about after Yuri Prochazka, the now former champion, was forced to, or on his own accord, relinquish the belt because he suffered a terrible shoulder injury. The UFC offered Glover Teixeira the fight with Magomed Ankalaev, to which he said no, because he's not going to fight a completely different style fighter on such a short notice. Completely respect it. So in any way, we get Jan Blachowicz versus Magomed Ankalaev. This should be a great fight. In the co-main event, we've got Paddy the Batty Bimblett taking on Jared Gordon. Tough fight for Jared Gordon. Will he derail the hype train? We shall see. I plan on doing a preview video on this fight card, so stay tuned for that. But in either way, there's good fights on this card up and down, and I will be doing live posts and reactions on my Instagram at No Bros All Manos Podcast on Instagram the night of the fights, so that way you can tune in and we can kind of interact with that. But that's gonna do it for this episode. Thanks y'all for tuning in. Make sure you like, share, subscribe to the video, and I will catch y'all next time. Peace.